The Indian film music industry, largely considered a man's world, is receiving a much needed tune up. Leading the charge are a clutch of brilliant women composers who are making India and the world sit up and take notice.
Things have improved a lot. Cannot deny that.
When we talk about gender representation, how women are represented, especially women in cinema, technical departments, how well do you think we're doing right now?
While in some sections, in some areas, it's really noteworthy and it's really commendable. But there are multiple other sections where it's invisible, and even if it's present, it's not present in the practical sense.
Only about 8% women represented in HOD, head of department positions in the Indian film industry, which is very little.
It's a thought, it's a culture, it's an entire, you know, it's almost like a cult that's happened for a long time, and you try to break it, but there are still things that you can't change. But overall, mindset has to change. Bottom line of the advice is always to go ahead. There is no other option. You have to overcome this gender barrier completely and ignore, continue to just focus on the art and the profession.
Our guest today is the rising star of Indian film music industry, Alokananda Dasgupta. She has given these wonderful background scores to Sacred Games, Jubilee, Trapped, and many more. The Indian film music industry, largely considered a man's world, is receiving a much needed tune up. Leading the charge are a clutch of brilliant women composers who are making India and the world sit up and take notice. Hello and welcome to What India Needs podcast with me, Shutapa Paul. Today we discuss women in cinema. No, not actors, but equally important, women in music and other technical departments. Our guest today is the rising star of Indian film music industry, Alokananda Dasgupta. She has given these wonderful background scores to Sacred Games, Jubilee, Trapped, and many more. And her work has brought background score to the fore. Alokananda, thank you so much for coming on What India Needs podcast. It's a complete pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. It's an honor on different levels. Number one level is friendship. I don't know if people know that we've been friends for a very long time since college. Number two level is that I watch it, and I really admire what you're doing. So I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much.
You're very kind. And of course, for us to have you, and obviously we go back a long time. I think if we had our Adda session, we'd talk about a lot of things.
Right.
So this is like an Adda, but what you're doing is so path breaking in an industry which is still very considered male dominated. And your work is seminal, and I think all of our audiences know that. When we talk about gender representation, how women are represented, especially women in cinema, technical departments, not everything is about actors, as we
Right.
were chatting. How well do you think we're doing right now? Where do we go from here?
It's $1 million question, actually. Well, we are in a pickle, but things have improved a lot. Cannot deny that. I should have probably said that first. Start with the positive thing, but I think I should talk about the pickle first. It's represented. I'm not going to say it's misrepresented, but the loopholes are still not. It's not filled. And the loopholes keep cropping up, and there is something about the change that is not foolproof, just like anything else. Everything, sorry to sound vague, but things require a balance. Everything requires a balance. So the representation of women in the film industry, while certain sections, certain sectors have been represented really well, and things have moved, equal pay or worth, all of that being heard, all of that is or given importance, while in some sections, in some areas, it's really noteworthy and it's really commendable. But there are multiple other sections, and where it's invisible, and even if it's present, it's not present in the practical sense. You talk about it, people talk about it, directors, producers. You'll hear in interviews lately that everybody talks about how they are so they support technicians, and
Yeah.
they support the artists,
Yeah.
and not just the people that are in front of the camera. They talk about it, and I'm sure it's a lot of it is genuine. I'm pretty sure, earnest and genuine, but a lot of it is still not being. They are not being able to implement it in a foolproof manner.
Right.
So yeah, that's my take on it.
No, that's very interesting because somewhere, the intent probably is there, although outwardly the commitments are being done, but to put things into practice takes far more commitment
Right.
and planning.
Right.
And, there was a one of a kind study which happened 2019, 2020 by a consulting firm called Ormax Media, which said that, which you'd obviously know, but for people who don't, about only about 8% women represented in HOD, head of department positions in the Indian film industry, which is very little. I mean,
Right.
considering how vast it is.
Right. So it is really really surprising, and I won't be able to put my finger on exactly why, because there are various levels. There is cultural, there is history, there is a undercurrent of things that go against the tide, go backwards, which is, there's an irony in our life, in the world these days. The regression there is, while there are so many things happening, and everything is moving forward and futuristic. At the same time, parallel lines do meet here. Things are going backwards as well, and I see it in politics, I see it in health, I
Yeah.
see it in life in general. So similarly with this, I don't know exactly why it's there, but I think it's multiple factors and multiple layers of factors. And on a personal level, there are obviously issues such as intimidation, such as lack of confidence, such as norm. It's hasn't been there, so it hasn't been there. So
Yeah.
this place is sort of keep off my lawn kind of thing. This is, I'm not supposed to. So it's a thought, it's a culture, it's an entire, you know it's almost like a cult that's happened for a long time,
Yeah.
and you try to break it, but there are still things that you can't change. So in that sense, I think, again, vaguely speaking, there are those issues, but overall mindset has to change.
Yeah.
uh, Truly, if the mindset does not change, then this 8% will never be 50%, let alone anything more than that. Yeah.
See, where corporate India is concerned, again, where women in workplace, at the workplace concerned, our numbers have improved. We are about 37% right now, but it's nothing compared to what it should be.
Right.
But at least those murmurs are coming in, where people are talking about we need more women at the workplace. Let's retain talent. How do we help mothers come back, as a second chance, as a second profession or a second comeback, so to speak. But I think where cinema is concerned, this representation thing is not hasn't picked up pace.
Right.
The discussion hasn't picked up pace.
Right. I think it's a strong sense of norm that's there, and it's so heavy, it's invisible, it's heavy, and sometimes it's multiple elephants in the room all the time. Then the elephant is that, and people are working. There are many women working, but there is that sense of tense situation in the air where it's really not gone to the level where basically it's here and here.
Yeah.
We can list facts, and we can list policies that need to change, and no, basic rules and all of that, starting from pay to, but what do you do about the undercurrent? And what do you do when you are in a studio and you are not being heard, and you're trying to talk normally, and when you're firm, then you are uh, you know deemed impolite
Difficult.
and difficult to
Yeah.
work with, and all of that. So again, it's everything is here and here. So the if this, and if it doesn't start from there, and if it doesn't stay there, then it won't change. And I mean, I'm going beyond what you asked me, but for me, it's so surprising, and I'm sure for you too, because we've both kind of had sort of, we have, our environment has kind of been the same
Yeah.
growing up, and
Yeah.
the family that I have been very lucky growing up with, the the concept, and I've been very, very lucky, and I admit that I'm very lucky that the whole concept of problem at workplace being gender related
Yeah.
was absolutely it never existed.
Yeah.
That conversation, that thought was never planted in my
Hmm.
head. I only faced it while at work. Before, there was no apprehension, there was no, I never thought about it that, oh, this is such a male dominated industry, will I be treated right? The thought didn't even cross, because with baba, ma, and didi, and all of it, all the conversation, family, friends, we have never talked about women, being a women in
Right.
our career being a problem. We have, I'm sure I have been very blessed to have this kind of a thought process.
Yeah.
But so it's coming from there, I never really considered this as an impediment from any angle. But it was there. It was there. It was unsaid. It was invisible, but it was there on many levels. But somehow, in my personal path, in my personal career, I've been very successful in absolutely refracting this thought,
Right.
not even giving it more than a few seconds to stay in my brain. Somehow, I have been very successful in doing that, where I've just brushed it off completely. That this, I'm not going to make this any kind of an issue in
Right.
this world of music, even though it was there. My issues were dealing with the perils of the profession as a human being, not as a female,
Right.
but as a human being, as a sensitive human being. That was the main thing that was all consuming for me.
Right.
So I never gave that any thought, and I have been often asked that what is it to be a female composer, and I've always said that I don't know. I have always thought of myself as a composer. I have
Right.
not thought of as male and female. But so that has been the kind of, I've been lucky to be able to, that I've been able to strike that balance. But it's I understand the people that who haven't, for whom this has always been. So if you think about it, people who have always, for them, they've already, the thought has already been, so they're already scared of it.
Right.
That why should we get into this profession, because there are no women, and we will probably be treated in a wrong way.
Do you guys do you ladies rather speak among yourselves, because I know that you do have some good friends within the profession, but is there any discussion, is there any action on having a kind of collective where what you haven't faced, and rather you've faced but you've kind of shut it out and you've kept to your path.
Right.
But say for the younger talent or the outside talent who does not have friends and anybody else to help them, mentor them, any kind of, do you all discuss a collective, a mentoring or something?
Right. No, we haven't. We don't discuss mentoring, but because we've had panels and discussions, we've
Yeah.
often talked about it in a way which has luckily been productive.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and I've had an audience who have kind of they have identified with what we are talking about. Even though for them it might seem like, okay, you are there, so you are, and I mean, you haven't faced the problem, so you
Yeah.
don't know what we are facing. So some of the advice might sound again generic, but you can't change the bottom line of the advice. I'm not all wise about it, but I know the bottom line of the advice is always to go ahead. There is no other option. You have to overcome this gender barrier completely and ignore, continue to just focus on the art and the profession, and see if you can completely eradicate this there is no gender in music. There is it has no place.
Yeah.
If you can absolutely eradicate the seed of the thought within the industry or within the people that you're working with, that is the only advice that I have. After that, there are many, there are a lot of practical advice.
Yeah.
Doing this, doing that, talking like this, and, networking and pushing yourself forward and not pushing. But I don't really believe in giving those advice because I'm not, I'm no, I'm no expert. And
You don't like
absolutely,
networking either. I
I
know
don't like
that.
networking
Yeah.
either, and I understand that you have to. It's not a template.
Yeah.
It is so much about this profession is about your personality, about you. The minute you try to do things in a formulated manner, I believe that it's kind of an it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't get into specific advice, but overall, again, you have to ignore and move and not make it about fighting as a woman for my rights, but it's as if taking it for granted that I will get my rights.
Right.
I will have to get my rights.
Right.
I'm not going to make that an issue. I demand it naturally.
Yeah.
It's organically there.
Yeah.
Through my life, through my conduct, through my profession, through my work, through me as a human being. Let it be there. Let it seep in from all angles. Let me not talk about it, advocate it, and have to. I mean, when you're having to advocate it, that means it's there.
Yeah.
That if you have to push yourself and fight for it at workplace in every angle,
Yeah.
then it's there. So the ideal scenario is to not even have that. And some people, some profession have the ability to achieve that more than the other. I'm pretty sure that in certain sections, whether it's corporate or not, it's not easy to just say stuff like let's ignore and move forward, because they are not able to ignore it.
Like
They're
some
facing it.
situations will affect more, and some
Right.
situations can be more serious.
Right.
When harassment comes into play, for example, that is something that we
Absolutely, yeah.
can't ignore, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
HEMA committee, 7 years for something to come, and
Right.
it was a long time coming.
Right.
But changes on the ground, women everywhere at the workplace do face
Right.
harassment of
Right.
some degree.
Right.
And I think it's a challenge across sectors. I
Right.
think film industry also has
Right.
its fair share
Right.
of challenges.
Yeah, harassment also, again, coming back to the thing of being heard, and here heard is musically as well as personally. You're
Yeah.
being listened and being heard.
Yeah.
So the voice being heard, all of that. So while there are, I hear it all the time, and I'm very happy that there are these things such as changes in maternity leaves and changes in HR and giving importance to certain things that are there. They all of that is there, and because I am not a part of that culture, of the CEO culture, of an office culture, that's why I don't really know how to express it in that scenario. But again, coming back to you can enforce as many policies as you want, put frame it in gold and titanium, but if the change doesn't happen from a heart grassroots level,
Yeah.
then it'll never show. And I still feel that we have a long way to go on many levels. As when you are talking about gender, you're also talking about humanity.
Of course.
You're also talking about basic empathy, basic wisdom, basic manners, basic sensitivity. So I feel like you cover these areas, you will cover that as
Also,
well.
correct. So, moving forward from this, the industry itself, it's a tough profession. I mean, the kind of schedules and deadlines and demands and again, pay, lack of it, delayed. I mean, we do hear a lot of things. Royalties, do they exist? Question mark. I mean, who knows? It's a tough industry in general for men and women both, right? What changes would you've been here for a while now, and what changes do you think are practical tips which could work, shape up the industry a little better, make it more, I don't know, committed, transparent, empathetic, as you said?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take all these three words and I'll elaborate on that. Empathetic, number one, and collaborative.
Yeah.
Less hierarchical, more collaborative. And it is a very tricky situation where rules also have to be, it's like a pseudoscience almost, or that's a negative connotation, but it's like architecture where there's art and science involved. So here as well, it's in a place where it is the your field, your playground is art, but your conduct sometimes has to be non-art. Why? So the balance again of both, where there's a method to the madness, where you enforce rules, but you also understand there is an art, there's a process, creative process, understanding creative process, empathy, collaborative, non-hierarchical communication, and again coming back to something that I'm still surprised with. I'm not used to it. I still haven't gotten used to the perils of work. I still feel that okay, in this project, people will be very kind and
Supportive
passionate
and all
about
of
their
that.
work, as well as kind in their approach towards that work. But every time I'm shocked, not even surprised, every time I'm shocked to see that the balance does not exist. So coming from that point of view, I again reiterate that whatever I said, those and a balance of understanding the creative process and understanding how to enforce the creative process in a sane, constructive, methodical,
Professional
yeah, a
method.
professional, again, method to madness is what I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
There are a lot of things that you can't help in this kind of profession. The nature of profession is such that not everything can be controlled.
Right.
I understand that fully. And I also understand that not everyone is out there to mess things up either. They all have their own issues and problems. They're all trying to make things, everyone's trying to
Yeah.
make things work. They're not trying to make things
Not
go
work, yeah.
completely, haywire. But still, because a lot of things have happened, right? There's OTT, there are mediums have changed,
Yeah.
priorities in entertainment have changed, war is happening, life
Exactly.
is very different now.
Yeah.
So you have to put art in the perspective. When in literature, remember, we were taught um, about how when somebody was doing something, what was happening in another world of art. Like,
Yeah.
if Rembrandt is painting this in
Yeah.
Renaissance, who was writing that in who was making music in that. So
Yeah.
you put that in, you have to treat it holistically
Yeah.
and figure it in a way which I thought was kind of basic, but I guess it's not, to approach it in that kind of a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I
You've
think.
you've also, of course, you've worked across industries, right? Bengali, Marathi, and of course Hindi. And now we, of course, have OTT and all of that coming in. How different do industries work? It's a very, I know it's a long response question, but briefly for us, um, between these three or four things that you've dabbled in, which is like your favorite, or what is different, what is good, what is bad?
It's a beautiful milieu of things, and you have a collage of good and bad. And so for me so far, I mean, the joy of creating something and understanding that this may be accepted as something good started with the advent of OTT, started with Netflix, started with Sacred Games. And it brought another layer to our lives, where we really needed that in our lives. We really needed another platform. We really needed another layer of, I just won't call it entertainment, I'll call it everything, respite,
Yeah.
life, part of life. We are all living in cities and working and trying to escape things and trying to get sucked into our screens to escape. And so OTT brought that for us beautifully. So it started with, I mean, one of the projects has been definitely Sacred Games and series, the
Yeah.
format of the series, because there was a huge kick in that. There's an excitement. We've never done something like that. And treating every episode as a movie, as a, if there are 8 episodes and if it's about an hour long, you're
Yeah.
doing 3.5 movies. So that was very exciting to and challenging to get into that format, that long format, and to have the platform carry it forward, and to have a stories that's never been done. So all of the stars aligned there. But of course, I mean, working with Baba on his films
Yeah.
will always be
Special.
special. Cannot deny that at all. Special because of, not just because of the home ground, because I was not given the benefit of home ground. In fact, the criticisms were far more on that front. But there was so much kindness.
Yeah.
There was so much passion and understanding of cinema and of what goes on making that. So that is a section where I would give an example of of the humanitarian aspect of creativity.
Yeah.
So working in an environment where people are truly passionate.
Yeah.
They're all doing it for the sake of the art. And I'm seeing an elderly gentleman father who's sick, not well, and still doing it, still
Yeah.
sitting, laying on his bed, going through a medical procedure and still shooting. So you watch that, and you then that is the only time that you come face to face with this is the real deal.
Yeah.
And so in that context, it's been working with Baba. And Marathi also, this is one of my second films actually, Fandry,
Fandry.
was a film that I did, and there that was a area where language was not a barrier. You know, the filmmaker Nagraj wasn't very fluent in English. I wasn't fluent in Marathi. We were doing kind of broken Hindi, and but that wasn't a problem. And the story was so compelling, and the director was so beautiful in his explanation without his humility and explanation. That was an area where I first discovered the joy of crossing the barrier of language and still creating something for the sake of the story. So these three things would probably be my favorite areas for these reasons.
And, you have brought, in the introduction that I have done to this episode, I've said you've brought background score to the fore. Because everybody is about, the music, the songs, but your work has really drawn attention. I mean, when A.R. Rahman welcomed you to the club and he tweeted, I mean, I had goosebumps seeing that tweet. And I can only imagine how you felt. And just tell us a bit about journey of how you've created this, what more needs to be done, and you do have some things to say about this, I know.
Yes, and first of all, my Twitter account was hacked last week.
Did you get it back?
No, I'm working towards it, and one of the first things that came to my mind is Rahman's tweet.
Oh gosh,
And
you screenshot it. I hope.
Screenshot it.
Oh
I
God,
should have
yeah.
it somewhere. But yes, so no, thank you for saying all of that. Very, very kind. Again, I was never a great pianist. Baba wanted me to be a concert pianist. Ma wanted me to be me and Didi both to be dancers.
Dancers, yeah.
So
You're a very good dancer. I
Thank
mean,
you.
that people should know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I really tried to pursue it, not because of him only, because classical music was my Western classical music was my first love. So, but I'm not a good pianist. I will never be, because it's something that I don't have it in me to perform. I have issues of nerves and all of that. So I discovered that I can compose. I used to compose, that I would never show it to people or make people listen to it. So it started from there, where I thought of composition. So I didn't know the word score. Score for me meant the score, the notation. That is the definition of score. Score means creating instrumental pieces which don't have lyrics for a narration. That I didn't even know of that term. I mean, I consider it as my pieces. I want to make pieces of music. And that also started with luckily my influence growing up, as a child in a small household with no sense of privacy and everything. Baba would watch his movies with us playing around and running around, and a lot of them were adult, and a lot of them had topics that I would never understand as a child. I didn't understand the language, didn't know English, didn't know anything about what was being played, but I would observe him. I would observe this, what he was watching. And what stayed with me were again, scores that I know now, or I used to call it music.
Yeah.
That's it, just music of films. and I remembered it throughout, and I remembered those scores growing up. So I treat it as creating music. It's only after creating music that I realize there's a huge separation and terminology separation and finances, a financial connotation of the two worlds of background score and songs. It's world apart, completely world apart. Financial connotation, popularity, importance, all of that. That is something that I learned later. Because I was thinking, I mean, songs is music, score is music. It's just I'm creating an instrumental piece. If I want, I'll put words in it. It'll become a song. If not, I'll create this. So, in fact, I had a problem with such a separation, and I think I've mentioned this to you that there has been a project where, I it's kind of like music by so and so and score by Alokananda, which is you're automatically putting score outside of music. You do songs by so and so and score by so and so. So I've always had issues with. For me, it was very basic, and I realized that for others, it's not, and for no fault of theirs, because the Indian industry has thrived off of songs. Music is means has always meant songs. We have had Ilyaraja, we've had Rahman, we've had Ray with scores, but people never talked about it. Most importantly, I believe they never made money out of it. So and the truth of the matter is, I was also raised on a heavy duty dose of Indian Hindi music. I mean, songs. Sorry, songs. It's not that I was unfamiliar with it, but I just didn't understand the separation. At all, and I still don't. But it's there. It is, songs are still considered to be music in Indian. If you have made songs, then they are released. They are portrayed. They have a video. And now with social media, there's other things involved. If you go back to basic, there used to be Chitrahar. Chitrahar used to be songs. There were no scores then. So so right now I realize that, and I realize that things have changed. Things have broken that flow of thought, and scores have come into foreground. The foreground. Some of the work I have done it's been appreciated. But I think more work needs to be done about the breaking this giant barrier between score and songs, because this barrier is multifold. It's financial, it's everything else, it's all of it combined. And what bothers me the most is the terminologies and the idea that this is not music, this is technical.
Do you mention that in projects that you do, that about the terminology and the
absolutely. I mentioned that. I talk of that in award ceremonies where it's considered as technical awards, and it's and you feel like you have coming with a toolbox and fixing a light bulb, sort of that. So this is technical, but this is song. If you made a song, then you are a musician in Bollywood or in Indian cinema, and thereby you get the attention. But I have been told like I did a project where I got a lot of messages about releasing the score, and we were having conversations regarding releasing the score, and a gentleman from the production team said, but ma'am, there are no words, there are no lyrics. Why do you want to release it? And I realized that in that innocent question, a lot of my answers were answered. It was very innocently said. He didn't mean anything by it. But he was completely unaware of the world that scores need to be released to. I mean, the amount of people that have messaged me and written to me about Sacred Game scores releasing. Why is it not releasing? It's and while it makes me feel happy because I still get those messages, it also makes me feel incredibly sad about that. So good news is things are changing fast, and the barriers are blending slowly. So I'll leave it on that note.
This is India's specific barrier, because again you do have you do a fair amount of projects overseas as well. I mean, Toronto as well.
Well, I have done very small projects, nothing on a big scale, but this concept is non-existent.
Right. So when you look at music industries outside, do you have like a certain industry or a certain country where you think they're doing very well on all grounds, on all counts, including rights and royalties and things like that, or is it? I mean, because I'm pretty much, I don't know much, so I'm just asking.
Well, I've had to learn a little bit of that because of the profession. I have had to kind of research a little bit. In terms of royalties and rights, of course, Hollywood uh,
Yeah.
has a structure. There's a structure, fee structure, overtime structure, everything. Uh, it's definitely there. But in terms of say in terms of things that I've been watching a lot lately is so much that I've been watching in British television also that have been very inspiring on the creative side,
Right.
not on the technical royalty side, but on the creative side. I've been watching a lot of shows and movies on that front. I think it's doing things which I identify with and I would like to be a part of. But
Nice.
for things like royalties and rights and contract, no loophole in the contract, whether you are a technician, whether you are a composer, or whether you are an actress or an actor. It's definitely much more
Better
it's more structured in Hollywood.
in Hollywood. And what's the scene with royalties here in India? Is it a complete mess? I don't know.
No, it's not a complete mess at all. It's just something that I really urge musicians to research more. It is something that you have to work on yourself. You have to figure. You have to associate yourself with the correct bodies of royalty. You have to work on it. You have to make sure that it's not something unlike other industries. It's not something that automatically happens as a it should be it should,
It should be.
happen like just like you're paid for your project. This should also be part of that format. But here you have to kind of work for it. You have to work on it. You have to be aware. A lot of people are getting more and more aware. But no, the scene is improving. It is definitely there. There is IPRS in India. It's getting better, but there is still a lot of things that need to be researched and worked on. There is a fair amount of paperwork
Right.
involved.
Which you're kind of driving yourself pretty much with a lawyer, and you're
Right.
doing it, which maybe in the publishing world, for example, is much better. It's much easier because,
Right.
I mean, I can say from
Yeah.
experience that the publishers kind of take care of all of it.
Right.
You simply have to go through it and sign.
Right, especially if you're a performing artist,
Yes.
or an independent artist with an album. But here it's tricky because the lines get blurred. What I'm not an independent artist. I'm not a performing artist. Some of my work is not getting released, but still there is royalties. So you have to. It's a specific subject that you have to work on, and you have to really get it done.
Right.
And I have been very particular about these things from the very beginning, whether it's contract, whether it's, and I've always ignored that because India has a structure of, in the industry, there's a structure of unsaid rules where your uh, your rule only matters if you are someone, if you are there,
Yeah.
if you've really made it.
Yeah.
Otherwise the rules don't apply to you. So it's interchangeable. It's not it's basically it changes based on your position on your hierarchy,
Right.
which is
There
not
are no benchmarks, no
there are
standards.
there are no standards. There's no norm that this is the standard practice. So that's why it's tricky.
It is tricky. It is tricky. So you have to. So for everybody who is watching this and will watch this, I think the advice is do your homework, have good advice, and really know what you're getting into in terms
Right.
of, later on you'll be like, I got shortchanged. But, you
Right.
should know what you're getting into, as with any profession.
Yeah. Good thing is there are a lot of organization, bodies of people, lot of conferences, panels, discussions on this.
Yeah.
More and more, there are expos in India all about music. There's, Priyanka Kimani, who's a lawyer, and she's kind of doing, bringing all of this in the foreground. There's IPRs, like I mentioned. So there are much more options for you to go and seek it out yourself and figure out how to make it happen for you. But it's, again, I'll end with the word, it's tricky. And it doesn't happen for you. You have to get it done.
Be more proactive
Much
and,
more
and do it
proactive, yeah.
yourself. Let's come to your personal journey, and of course you mentioned Baba, uncle. Of course, I have very fond memories of him as well. And how difficult is it to have a towering figure like him? Because many times, it can't be easy. I mean, your dad had what, 9, 10 national awards, maybe more.
Yeah, yeah.
And how was it? You literally bloomed. He's a great influence. Tell us a bit about that.
Um, the biggest gift was to is has been to live with a real artist. I still consider myself to be kind of fake because, in the sense that if I'm desperately sad, I would rather cry than compose or play a piece of music, especially in today's time where everything is the chaos is very much on a daily forefront basis. So but he was the real deal. He actually lived, breathed cinema, and he did it exactly for passion, only for passion. The everything else was, fame, money, all of that was far at the background. And that's how, so it's to be able to live with a person like that, who, it's very rare. The
Very
real
rare,
deals
yeah.
are literally one in
Yeah.
millions and millions.
Yeah.
So to live with somebody like that, you get to see the truth in the profession, the truth in an individual's artist's life. But it also comes with the other side of it, because it's not easy. I mean, to live in a head that cares that much
Yeah.
about cinema is not easy.
Yeah.
So naturally, you also have to face the other side of that person's, you know, suffering, dealing with the part that's not getting fulfilled.
So you were telling us about, the influence that your father and his work has had, and I remember very distinctly that you were exposed to foreign film festivals very early on, right?
Right,
And how was
right.
that whole influence?
Oh, that again, that was a huge study in cinema almost, because that was a huge lesson again for passion. Because back then, I'm sounding like super old, but back then
You're not, but yeah.
festivals were also really for the sake of cinema and cinema only. Hopping from one theater to the other and standing in line, and just being able to afford to pay the ticket, asking people for free passes and tickets because you cannot pay. You want to watch so many, but you don't have the money, and nothing else is important. Not the red carpet, not what you're wearing, not the celebrities, not the films that are popular,
Yeah.
not the Q&As with them. It was only and only for films.
Yeah.
And I saw Baba do it, and I have been lucky enough to witness not too many, but a little bit of that. That was also another huge lesson, that oh my god, this is only happening because he's only there because he wants to watch.
Yeah.
Yes, he has his own films to showcase also, but he is desperate. Everybody around just want to watch films. There was no lobbying. There is no culture and cult of I know this person, I know that person, let my film be selected. And there was none of that. Or maybe it was, I didn't see, but it seemed like back in the golden days.
Yeah.
Basically the golden days of festivals, absolutely stripped of the glamour, and at the level purely for by towards everything, all the it's only for cinema,
Only for the art,
only
so
for
to
the art.
speak. Wow.
So I got exposed to that a little bit, not too much. My sister also, Ma also, we got to watch, observe a lot of that. Other than that, the influences, to see him watch these movies, all these amazing, from Kurosawa's Dreams to
Yeah.
all of these movies, a score of which stayed with me. So that, I mean, I've been very lucky to have these films being played, music being played in the household all the time. And he was a poet, so also, observing him and watching him write. Apparently, I used to sit on his desk for hours. As a kid, I was a very boring child. My sister keeps teasing me that something was wrong with you, and I used to just sit for hours on his desk and watch him write. So I think subconsciously and consciously, all of this has made an impact on my understanding of music, of cinema, most importantly of life, of whatever little I know of it. It's been because of, of how he has dealt, he has looked at his life through lens before he actually professionally got into it.
Right.
And living with his wife and living with Ma, who was equally, complementing that. She was
Yeah.
also a poet. She loved dance, she loved music.
Absolutely.
Her grandfather was Rajinikanth Sen, who was kind of a contemporary of Tagore. So also having music, dance from her, and kindness, love. She taught us love, kindness. Baba gave us the gift of that and music. So in the beginning, we used to be very angry with him that, you don't want to learn piano. It was intimidating instrument. But I truly realize what, the click happened. Obviously, I also took to it. Most of my days in college, I don't know if you guys remember, where you would kind of tell me that, why are you going back? Let's hang in the green bench and
Yeah.
around, and let's go here, let's go to Dreams, and let's go to Delights, and let's go to Flurries. And
Dreams and delights, people, it sounds very X-rated. They're just restaurants.
yeah,
We
yeah,
used to go for rolls and
yeah,
dosas and
super
stuff.
affordable.
Yeah.
Your cheese dosas. And so every time all of you would tell me, why don't you come with us? And I would keep saying that, no, I have to go home. I
Yeah.
have to go home. And a lot of it, I don't know if I had lied to you guys back then or not, but a lot of it was because I keep saying this. During that time, we had computer in our house, not too long ago. I think it was what 2000, sometime 2 3 slightly before college. So then there was this advent of MP3s. You
Yeah.
had MP3s back then. So my brother-in-law Arjun, he gifted my sister a giant collection of MP3s. They were all sort of kind of a mixtape kind of an MP3. He created this beautiful pouch. And my first introduction of kind of world music all over, in the scene of rock, classic rock, metal, all of that was through that. And I used to look forward to coming back from college to go to Baba's office that used to be empty right across my house, and just to listen to those MP3s all night. And Ma used to call me, then, when are you going to come for dinner? And there was cockroaches everywhere, and I would battle the fear just because I'm listening to Iron Maiden,
Wow.
Number of the Beast, and realizing, oh my god, this prelude is amazing. I don't care if it's metal, hard rock, classic rock, but just listening to Wish You Were Here for the first time. All of those things happened through that influence. Lot of knowledge of scores happened through the films that Baba used to watch. Rabindra Sangit was always prevalent. We had cassettes. We used to go to Goriat Road and buy these
Yeah.
cassettes. So I used to continuously buy Beatles cassettes and the albums that were available, listening to them over and over again, remembering, knowing the song within a second of the introductory music.
Yeah.
All of this was a part of my life.
Yeah, for a person who forgets a lot of other things,
Right.
your ability to remember, to know and identify the scores. I mean, that's just brilliant, though.
Yeah, so it was omnipresent. All of
Yeah.
it was, and back then we took it for granted. I took
So
it
you
for
basically
granted.
ditched us you
Little
ditched
bit.
human company,
A
not
little
just
bit.
us. I won't take it personally, but you ditched us for music,
Right.
which makes sense. I mean,
And-
look where you are today.
And I have to say this, segue a little bit. That was the purest form of music. There's nothing, no stakes. There's
Yeah.
no. I mean, there were no stakes because I wasn't in the career at that time. But nothing to expect. It's not that I wanted to perform and I wanted to compose and I wanted to. It was just for the excitement to listen. It's something that it's really it was the as close to pure happiness as you can be, the excitement to listen. Luckily, I still have that.
That's nice.
I still have a serious excitement to listen, but I miss the purity of it that was there back then. But coming back to your original question, yes, growing up with Baba and Ma and all you guys, it was, college, school, everything, music was omnipresent on many levels. Music, poetry, cinema, Shahid, what we studied in in college,
Yeah.
English literature. Again, connecting the world. I don't think I would have understood music if I didn't attend Tiger Burning Bright on front bench. So all of these things came together.
Yeah.
That was a real time when a human being realizes, we use words like my calling and my passion. We didn't think of those things back then, but I
When did you
realized.
get the calling and passion? While we were doing English? Tiger,
Yeah.
Tiger, Burning Bright?
Yeah. That was in college. Was because in school I still wasn't sure. You kind of people ask you what do you want to do, and and studying music was never an option. Pursuing music was also never really, in that sense. I knew I couldn't be a concert pianist. So what would I be? I mean, there are no women in the industry. I don't know. I'll never be able to be a Bollywood composer. I'll never be. I didn't think of the women factor back then, but I mean, all of that, it never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
It was until college where it started to feel that this is something real. I'm not able to survive well without it. Then it came to the point where, okay, I think I can. I was actually told when I went to study music, again very lucky to do that, and I was supremely intimidated. Probably the worst pianist outside the country, the worst pianist was better than me, and I thought that this is it. This is the end of my musical career. I'll never be able to compete with.
I think you're a
this
bit
person.
harsh on yourself. I mean, I've always believed that. So everybody who thinks you could be worst or you're fake and all those are extremely harsh things that you say. You've always been brilliant, Aloka. Even when we were in college, like a kind of genius. I mean, obviously, I mean, you don't want human company and you're going and doing, you have an artistic pursuit. I mean, it has to yield to something. But Toronto, I mean, that's where you studied, and I know you have a soft corner for the place.
I have a soft corner because it was there that I was told, sat down and told, look, you're not good at this.
But with
at
empathy
performing.
and kindness.
Yes, empathy and kindness, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Continue playing. It's okay if you cannot perform in a giant hall and all of that. But there are other forms of music that you're good at. You're good at other things. You're good at analysis. You're good at. So that's why one of my passions has always been teaching, because I love talking about it. I love all the gyan and all the fundas and all the nerding out. I love discussing all of that. And then composition was also, again, first thing was I'm never going to play it for somebody, they'll probably hate it. But I started doing it, and that's when I realized that I think there may be a possibility that I might want to do this. So it started through.
You, of all people, should not have any imposter syndrome. I mean, isn't that the words doing the rounds and
Yes,
everything? I mean,
yes,
for
yes.
sure. Anything exciting that you can tell us that's coming up?
Right.
Anything you'd like to talk about, which you're excited about?
Well, I did a Bengali film called Puratan that got screened at Mami recently, and it's a very very sensitive film, and I have kind of sort of tried to match the sensitivity of the film. So I'm excited about that. I have just done a horror show called Cough, and horror has been a very favorite genre of mine.
Yes.
And nerded out on horror for a long time, and not the typical horror. I have my kind of horror, and I've always wanted to dabble there and create that.
So is it gore or is it psychological? Which one?
It's not. I mean, gore and psychological are the kind of the symptoms of the horror, but it's I don't know. I can't describe it. It's not jump scare and slasher. Basically, it's kind of other kind of Midsummer and It Follows, all of these kind of things, and those kind of horror. And I've always found it very interesting to create the paradox of having something beautiful to create, to express fear. I mean, the sounds will always be there. You can always create fear through distorted sound, and sound
jarring
effects,
sounds.
and jarring,
That's
synthetic sounds. But I've always fantasized about creating a fear through organic beauty of a score. Wow. So that's why I'm kind of I'm lucky that I got to work on that. So there's that series that's going to be coming up. Another series that I've just started is also a very interesting story. It's kind of like, it's also about, I wouldn't call it gang, but it's a crime thriller about opposition and people who are against each other, and
Right.
it is drama unfolds, but it's about it's women only. The if I can call it gang, but gang members are only women. So it's a
Interesting.
very very interesting story. Is my next project, so I'm working on currently.
Very exciting, very exciting. I'm looking forward to all of them. And horror is also one of my favorite genres, so
Yeah, yeah,
I'm really looking forward to this.
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on What India Needs podcast, Aloka. I think we need to do another session on another topic because I think this is the only way we'll get to meet and hang out.
No, we should definitely meet and hang out outside of this. But I am very, very honored and thankful again, because what you're doing is very cool and special. And
That's very sweet
thank you
coming
so
from
much.
you. I mean, that means a lot. But yes, we have to improve our frequency of catch ups and
Yes,
in studios and outside
yes,
as well. Thank you
yes.
so much for joining
Thank
us.
you, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on What India Needs podcast. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you liked our content, you want to see another guest or a topic discussed, please leave it in comments below. Thank you and see you next time.